Say hi, Syvie. Look up here. Say hi. Glad we got that out of the way. I have two cats. They make my life complete chaos. Their names are Syvie and Loki. That was Syvie. I'm sure you'll see Loki on camera eventually. So anyway, let's get to what we're supposed to be doing. So today I'm going to show you this little Illustrator tutorial right here, which is an overview of some of the tools that you're going to need for the icon project. So I've got the pen tool, the shape tool, gradients, the brush tool, and the different types of strokes. So if you want to go in and download this file so you can play with it or make your own, feel free to try to follow along with what I'm doing, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and copy all of this and paste it over in here into my other document so I can delete all of the stuff in here, because this is what we're going to be doing together. Okay, so the first thing that we want to concentrate on is the pen tool. Now the pen tool is this little guy here. Let me move this over a little bit. The pen tool is this little guy here, and it basically creates vector lines. And there are two different types of line that it can make. So let's zoom in on the canvas a little bit. And by the way, I'm zooming in using Command+. You can also use Control+. So if I click with the pen tool and I don't hold and pull, I actually get a straight line. So go ahead and make yourself like a weird little starburst shape. And you'll notice that when I get up here to where my line ends, I get this little circle. That means it's basically completing the shape. When you're working in Illustrator, you want to try to work in complete shapes, because if you don't close your shapes, they can act really strangely. So here we have a jaggy line, and click, click gets a straight line. So if I want to get a curved line though, if I'm making a curvilinear thing and not a rectilinear thing, then what I actually want to do is click, click, pull. So if I'm pulling on that little arm as I'm making the next point in my line, so go ahead and give that a try. Click, click, pull, click, pull. And what that is doing is making these little vector arms, basically. These are called curve lines, and you can actually go in and change these. So it's making little arms on our vertices, and we can go and edit them later. So now there are two different types of selection tools in Illustrator, and that'll help you with selecting either a whole object or a part of an object. The white arrow is used for selecting part of an object. So let's just say I really wanted to change this little guy here in my starburst shape. Then I could use the white arrow tool to select certain points and push and pull them around. I can do the same thing with our curvilinear tool. So I want you to think of that white arrow as basically component mode. So I can select all the little pieces and move them around. And if I need to select an entire object, so my entire icon, my entire block of text, whatever it is I'm trying to select, I want the V tool, which is the black arrow. So V on the keyboard to get the black arrow. And I can select the whole object with this tool. You can see that I can't actually move the vertices around. So when you're creating shapes like you're going to be doing for this upcoming project, you want to make sure that you're using the right tool. Another thing that I want to point out is we have a stroke around the outside of this shape, but what if I wanted it to be filled in with a color? This little menu right here is fill and stroke. And as you can see, what I can do is flip-flop these two things. Or I can click on one and get a contextual color menu, so where I can select a color. So let's give that a try. I'm going to go ahead and select my shape, and then I'm going to go over here to swatches. See how I have a little color guide? Let me go ahead and select a different color here. All right, so now I've added a fill to my shape. I can switch those two things. So go ahead and give that a try. I'm going to add another fill to this one, all right? So my color menu, if I put it over here in our menu, we can actually see it, I think. Yeah. All right, so this little guy here is our color menu, and you can click on it to change the color of your fill. All right, so that's the pen tool. Okay, we also have the shape tool. Let's talk about that. That's this one. It's located right underneath the text. And by the way, if your screen doesn't look like my screen, if you go into Window and Workspace, you should be setting your window to Essentials Classic. That's the one that I use the most in this class. So Window, Workspace, Essentials Classic, if you want yours to look just like mine. The shape tool is this little guy here, and I can get to the rounded ellipse tool by clicking and holding on that contextual menu. If I click and hold, I can change to what shape I'm going to be making. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and make myself a star. I'm going to make myself a circle, and I'm going to make myself a polygon. You can do this with the default shapes here in Illustrator. You can also make custom size ones. Let's go ahead and change some of the attributes of these items. And what I'm doing is just double clicking on this fill. It'll give you a contextual color menu that you can now change the fill color with. So I'm just going to change the colors of these real quick. And so that's what the shape tool does. It creates simple geometry. And what's nice is you can take this into account when you're creating your icons. If you're creating something that has a circle or a star or a polygon in it, there's no need to draw it all by hand with the pen tool. No, you can actually use the shape tools to get you there, and then you can just adjust the shapes. So like I was saying before, let's zoom in a little bit on the shapes here. I'm going to go ahead and use my component mode, my white arrow, to select the top of my star. And as you can see, I can adjust that and move it around. Same thing with my circle here. All right, but if I'm using the black arrow, then it's going to select the entire thing. All right, it's going to move the whole shape around. So let's go down here to the brush tools. Now, remember that there are two different modes to worry about when you're using a brush. There's one called the paintbrush, and there's the blob brush, and they kind of do two different things. The paintbrush, which is B on the keyboard, so if you just hit B on the keyboard, you'll get a brush. It's actually creating strokes. So let's go ahead and try to make ourselves a nice little squiggly line using the brush tool. There we go. There's our squiggly line. As you can see, what it's done is it's made, let's zoom in a little bit, it's made a stroke out of what we drew. See how I can move those little things around there? That's different than what the blob brush tool does. So I'm going to select this so you can see it. Let me change the fill color real quick so we can, there we go, to something else so we can see it a little better. And as you can see, I've got like a little line in the middle of my fill that I can adjust. The blob brush doesn't create strokes. It creates filled shapes, which is different. So let's make a filled shape, like clicking and holding on the brush tool or hitting Shift and B at the same time on the keyboard will get you to the blob brush. And as you can see, I'm going to paint, and it looks just like the other one, right? But here's the main key difference. If I use my white arrow to select this, you can see that I've got a line all the way around the outside of my object. So I can actually then go here and add a stroke around the outside of my object, like that. So this has made a stroke, this has made a filled shape. And those are the two different brushes that you need to think about. This is the brush tool, and this is the blob brush tool. So if you're trying to paint shapes, then you'll probably want to use the blob brush tool. If you're trying to do something that you need a stroke for, then you'll do the brush tool. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the types of strokes section here. I'm going to grab that and put that down here. All right, so I'm going to draw a few lines using the line tool. By the way, the line tool is right underneath the pen tool, and all I have to do is to click and drag. I'm going to click and drag myself a few little lines here. And we're going to make a few different kinds of strokes. So if I select this and I put a stroke on it, okay, I need the stroke menu to be able to edit this. But because I am in Essentials Classic mode, I have a contextual menu up here at the top that tells me all of the available options for the thing that I have selected. That's why I really think it's a very beginner-friendly mode. I'm going to go ahead and put a basic stroke on these guys. All right, so here's our basic stroke, and it's a uniform stroke. But what if we wanted it to look a little bit more like calligraphy? All right, so we might want to do something that looks more like a tapered stroke. Let's go ahead and change that uniform profile. These are line profiles to something that looks more like a taper. So I'm going to go ahead and put basic on all of these, okay? And I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to increase the size of my stroke up here so you can see that it's tapered there on the end. So you can change your line profile by clicking on this little drop-down menu. It's not showing up on the screen here, but if you click on this little drop-down menu up here, you should be able to see all the different types of strokes. I'm going to go ahead and make my stroke a little thicker here. So I'm increasing the point size of the stroke. And I'm going to change this to something that looks like that. So this one goes from skinny to thick to skinny. And let's apply some of these to the shapes. I'm going to grab myself a circle. And let's see what a difference different kinds of strokes make. So here's my circle with a uniform stroke. I'm just going to copy and paste this on top of itself. Here, I'm going to make it with a tapered stroke. So let's go ahead and taper this one. It looks very, very different than that, right? And maybe not great, but I'm going to create one with a stroke that goes in and out. So I'm going to change this from uniform to, there we go, something that goes in and out. If I make that a little larger, you can actually see it. There we go. So as you can see, different types of strokes feel a lot different around the outside of your object. So if you're going for something that looks a little bit more hand-drawn, you might want to go with something that has a little bit of a taper on it. If you want something that's super mechanical and uniform, then you can use this type of stroke with it. Let's talk about gradients. You can get to the gradients menu. It's right over underneath this little box looking thing. It's actually the 3D panel. This is the gradients menu. And I'm going to go ahead and make myself a shape or two so we can look at the different types of gradients. There we go. So I've got myself two filled shapes. And I'm going to go ahead and try filling that with a gradient by clicking on the gradient tool. Okay. Be sure that you have the fill selected for your shape here. I'm going to click on gradient, and then we need to select the type of gradient up here at the top. This is a radial gradient. And I can change the shape of the gradient by moving this little guy around, okay? I can also make it bigger or smaller by altering the edges of our gradient. But let's just look at a radial gradient, which kind of looks like it's glowing on the inside. And I'm going to select this other shape, fill that with a gradient, and this is a linear gradient. So it goes linearly across the shape. You can alter the colors of your gradients, but I wouldn't worry about that too much today. This is probably enough things to think about. But you're going to need all of these tools in order to be able to make your icon project. So I want you to take a look at this little file here. So we've got the shape tool, the pen tool, the brush tools, different types of strokes and gradients. But this has about 3 different slides in it. And the next time, I'm going to be covering how to do blends. And so I want you to concentrate on trying to build your shapes out of these tools that we have learned today of your icons. And that's all that I have for you for this little video.